This Art of Procurement Friday show was made possible thanks to the generous support of Denali. Denali specialises in providing a variety of procurement services, including category management, sourcing, contracting, supplier management, and P2P for Global 2000 clients across multiple industries. Partnering with Denali's procurement professionals, your organisation can generate more value faster. So to learn more, visit Denali at www.denaliusa.com or email info@denaliusa.com.
Welcome to the Art of Procurement podcast with your host, Philip Eidson. Here, thought leaders share the trends, strategies, and tactics that you can use to elevate the role of procurement and your career.
Hi there, everybody, and welcome to the latest Art of Procurement Friday show. And over the past week or so, I focused the Art of Procurement on careers. And if you listen to Tuesday's show, which was episode 72, with Mark Pollack of SIG University, you'll have heard Mark discuss in detail about the benefits of continuous education in developing and improving our careers. And then late last week, I wrote a long-form blog post which was titled 5 Steps to Break Free from a Stalled Procurement Career. And what I wanted to do today was just talk quickly through those 5 steps that I referenced in that blog post, and then give a little bit of context about how I've approached a number of crossroads that I faced in my career and some of the learnings that I took from them. I want to say that, I'm not suggesting that the approaches I took are the right ones, but I've always found that when talking to others about career choices that they've made, that's always helped me as I consider and put into perspective some of my own decisions. Okay, so let's go straight into the 5 steps. And what I'll do is I will link up to the blog post in the show notes today. And first, it's undertake a self-assessment. So try and get to the root cause of why your career is stalled. Are you in the wrong job? Do you have a leadership team that doesn't believe in you? Maybe you are in a small procurement group and there's very few opportunities to progress. Maybe you just have unrealistic expectations. But performing that self-assessment is going to be the foundation of figuring out the steps that you need to take to get your career back on track. Now, second is more psychological and is a change of your mindset. And I found this really powerful, at least as I've applied this to my own career. So early in my career, I was really fortunate to have responsibility for a large captive offshore procurement group over in Chennai in India. And I moved out to India for a year or so to manage the team and manage the office. But we operated not as if we were part of my organization, part of the company that I worked for, but as if we were a service provider, because we were really competing for other investment dollars within the company. And also, procurement leaders had a choice of whether they used our services to augment their procurement teams or whether they just kept resources onshore. And so I've always tried to apply subsequently those thoughts when I led internal teams, particularly when procurement doesn't have a mandate. So, think about that and how that may apply to your own career. Remember that your employer has to find value in what you do. It has to find an ROI that's greater than the alternatives should they choose to invest your salary elsewhere in the company, in different resources, in technology, whatever it may be. I've always believed that if you think about your career in that way and you act as a service provider, or at least have that service provider mentality, you're always going to stand out from the crowd. The third point is to invest in self-development. This is really important. Not to wait just for education opportunities or development opportunities to come to you, or for your company to kind of provide them on a platter. And Mark Pollack of SIG, he shared a lot about how to do this back in the episode earlier in the week, that episode 72 that I referred to. So I'm not going to reinvent the wheel here, and I'll talk a lot about what Mark said in that conversation. What I do just want to refer you to is that I pulled out some key learnings in a post that I published on Tuesday. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about self-development and how you can invest in your own self-development, I'm going to link to that blog post in the show notes. The fourth way to try and get your career that may have stalled back on track is to invest the time in developing your personal brand. So this can be internally. So make sure that you consistently have a set of standards in your work to which everyone then expects at the minimum level whenever they work with you or whenever they receive work from you. But it also can apply externally. So look at becoming a voice in the procurement community. And what a voice means, obviously, it means different things to different people. But an example, look at using self-publishing platforms like Medium or LinkedIn Pulse to just start, sharing some of your thoughts, sharing some of your opinions, what you believe in, some of your experiences with the procurement community. Because from my own personal experience, I really can't express how many doors just being visible and sharing experiences opens. And finally, there are times when you just pass the point of no return. And for better or worse, for whatever reason, in your mind, it's just time to seek a new challenge. And in today's Friday show, I actually wanted to build on that last point a little bit. Because over the course of my career, I found myself at a crossroads really on a number of occasions. And each time I've taken a slightly different course. It's really situational, but I wanted to share my thinking each time that I found myself at a crossroads and some of the lessons that I took that I then applied subsequently, when faced with some of the similar or same situations later on in my career. And the first time was in my job after graduating. So I was placed into the purchasing department of a large automotive company. And to put it mildly, my boss and I didn't particularly get on. The good news is that at least I wasn't the only one. So it wasn't personal. It was just, unfortunately, his personality. And without going into details, some of the antics are still pretty legendary. And I talked about every time I meet with friends who I met at this company and at this stage of my career. But I desperately wanted out. But I could also see that my boss was counting down the days to his retirement. So much that he would wave an imaginary envelope every time he walked down the corridor saying, if somebody comes to me with a retirement package, then you know where they can find me, and where they could find him usually wasn't in the office. But rather than cut and run, I tried to bide my time until that retirement came. And importantly, I started investing in my relationships with other leaders within our purchasing organization, including our local CPO. And ultimately, my manager did get his retirement papers. I think it was a very happy day for him and also for his team. And the work that I'd done in building those other relationships came in handy because with his retirement came a reorganization. The decision makers in putting those names in boxes for the new structure were the same people that I'd cultivated the relationships with. So this was a really important lesson. It was actually, I think, critical that I learned this early, is in the importance of your network and in cultivating your network, but also investing in your network during times where you don't need the help so much. And that's what I focused on since, because at the time I was networking because I did need help, but you're in a much better position to do it when you don't need help, so that your network is there when you do need it. So fast forward a few years, and I joined a smaller company that had an onshore procurement team of only two. It was me and my boss, who was a CPO, and most of the team was based offshore. And I joined because the role was one where I knew I could deliver new skills, which was about managing outsourced providers. But I also joined for the title because it was the first time I got to call myself a manager. The red flags were there before I joined in terms of limited opportunities to progress. And, when I think back, I think the CPO even told me this beforehand. So, the company were being very open and honest about what that looked like if I did join. But I still took the job. I think I chose to ignore or selectively ignore the red flags because I wanted the title, I wanted the money, I wanted my own office, and I saw this as an opportunity to get out to the automotive industry that I was in at the time, because I could see some of the issues that were coming down the pipe for the auto business that were accelerated because of the recession in 2007, 2008. But within, I don't know, probably 4 months, I'd already learned that while I took the job to learn, I wasn't that happy. I basically sat in my office staring out the window wondering what I'd done. I stayed in that job for probably 7 months. And on this occasion, I made the call to cut my losses quickly. So it's not something you want to do often in your career, but I knew that from this point, it wasn't going to improve. And I feared that my career would stall if I stayed too long. So I really had to take it on the chin. And, it was expensive, definitely an expensive decision. But I learned a few things. One is that the grass really isn't always greener on the other side, but I'd chosen to ignore the red flags in a rush to leave the auto industry. And I think I had my head in the sand a little bit. I convinced myself that I'd figure things out when I got into the position. But since then, I think I've been a lot more considered and strategic about career moves. So realize that, you got to take the long game, because rarely do good things come from knee-jerk reactions. And also, be really aware of any red flags if you are still intent on taking the role. Do whatever you can to mitigate them while you have the chance. And that chance is most likely when you're negotiating the job offer, rather than ignoring them and thinking that you can figure them out later. And the third and final crossroads I want to share is when I'd been with a company for a couple of years, I was enjoying it, I'd had good results. I'd been very fortunate that I'd been tagged as part of their high potential scheme. But despite all this, I still wasn't particularly happy. And I felt that, at least my personal perception, was that my leadership team didn't want to promote me because it would give them the problem of having to backfill somebody who was performing well. And they just had greater issues that they were trying to solve for at the time. But that in effect, helping me progress, I think, because of those bigger issues, will provide a bigger headache for them than what it would solve. So in this instance, I decided to be vocal about it, tell my leadership team that I needed progression if I was really to be able to stay around. I would always advise caution in doing it. You have to feel like you have a good enough relationship with your leadership team that it isn't taken as a threat, but just really an honest summary of where you are and where you see your career. But you also have to be aware that if it's taken the wrong way, you may have to start looking for a new job sooner than you'd expected. But I did it because I felt comfortable, whatever the outcome. And in doing so, my leadership team shared with me their strategy to help me progress to the next level, and the level above that. And we talked about milestones. We talked about some of the things that were out of my control, some internal changes that needed to happen to be able to facilitate it. So I left the discussion motivated that at least there was a plan, and that there was an investment from my leadership team to help me progress. But I also knew that with some milestones in place, that if they're missed, that's my signal that maybe this just wasn't going to happen. The good news is that they kept me up to date on the progress of the milestones, and while it wasn't as quickly as maybe I would have liked to, I did ultimately enjoy some really relatively fast progress in that organization. So from this, I took, not to suffer in silence, but it's always important if you do start vocalizing the fact that you may be unhappy, is be pragmatic. Don't just throw around demands. Speak from the heart. If your leadership team are genuine about wanting to keep you around, they'll find a way. It might be promotions, it might be special projects, it might be more responsibilities. It may just be giving you more of an insight into what they do to start shadowing them so that you can just, pick up a little bit more of what's going on around you. But they'll find a way. And if they don't, then it's time to start planning your next move. All right then, well, that's it all for another Art of Procurement Friday show. I'm going to be back on Tuesday, and I'm really excited to bring you that show. I actually spent an hour earlier this week with Kate Vitasek. Kate is the founder of Vested Outsourcing, an architect of the Vested methodology. We talk at length about the art, the science, and the practice of crafting strategic supplier relationships. You're not going to want to miss this one. But until then, have a great weekend. I'm proud to say that this episode of The Art of Procurement is brought to you by Denali. Denali is a procurement-focused, technology-agnostic, highly efficient managed services provider. And as a former buyer and provider of procurement managed services, I've admired Denali from afar for quite some time. Denali specialises in providing a variety of procurement services, including category management, sourcing, contracting, supplier management, and P2P for Global 2000 clients across multiple industries. Denali understands that every client has challenges with their procurement delivery model that are unique to that company. That's why Denali prides themselves on building solutions that are tailored to solve the individual needs of each client. Partnering with Denali's procurement professionals, your organisation can generate more value faster. To learn more, visit Denali at www.denaliusa.com. Thank you for listening to another episode of The Art of Procurement. To find an archive of all past episodes, you can go to artofprocurement.com/episodes. And to ensure you never miss another show, go to artofprocurement.com/subscribe.